Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our training on accelerating cloud value through FinOps Insights. I'm Jeff Haines. I'm part of the go-to-market team here at Anodot. Today, I'm very honored to be joined by Melissa Abecasis, who is one of our FinOps experts here at Anodot and also a key part of our customer success team. Prior to Anodot, Melissa managed the cloud FinOps team at a large service provider, working with hundreds of organizations to help them leverage the cloud more effectively. I'm very excited to learn from her alongside you later on in our presentation. We love audience questions, feedback, and input, so please submit your thoughts directly through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer questions as we go. We'll also hold a dedicated Q&A session towards the end of the event. Before I begin, though, I want you to think about where you are in your organization's FinOps journey. So a good way to think about this is the FinOps Foundation, the leading cloud cost management community and standards group, has a handy model that breaks down cloud financial management into three phases, 6 domains, 18 capabilities, and 3 levels of maturity across each: crawl, walk, and run. How would you characterize your organization's level of financial management maturity for the cloud today? Regardless of where you are in your FinOps journey, you're going to learn today what you can do better to better empower FinOps stakeholders with clarity and highly personalized insights. We're going to explore how you can further develop your multi-cloud cost management strategy to minimize noise and maximize the relevance between your FinOps practice and your unique business objectives. We'll look at the relationship between FinOps and business value. We'll discuss how, before anything else, FinOps is all about cross-functional relationships and why insight is critical to driving collaboration. We'll look at what makes a FinOps insight useful and how we develop the insights we delivered in Anodot. And we'll explain ways you can deliver better clarity across your organization to grow your multi-cloud value. So what's the value of FinOps anyways? A lot of folks mistakenly believe it's all about scrutinizing and reducing the cloud bill, but it's not. At Anodot, we believe the value of FinOps is all about driving greater revenue from your multi-cloud investment. FinOps accelerates the value you get from the cloud, yes, by helping you cut costs, but primarily by shifting the culture of your organization from one of traditional silos to one that is collaborative. To enable that shift, the FinOps Foundation recommends 3 phases, which we align with at Anodot. Inform, we call this visualize. It's all about enabling every cloud stakeholder to understand their contribution to costs and how they relate to your business. On the finance and business side, this is often where FinOps initiatives might start to break down. Optimize, enable your team to understand how and to actually use the cloud more efficiently. On the engineering and DevOps side, this is often where FinOps could start to break down. I've heard some real horror stories, primarily caused by a lack of empathy between finance and engineering, and we'll cover a little bit about how to fix this discrepancy. Operate, we call this monitor. Achieve highly sophisticated and predictable cloud operations where you can look ahead with a great deal of accuracy and are never surprised by your cloud bill. And yes, we've added a 4th here at Anodot that underlies everything. You can't afford to wait to improve your cloud financial operations. Start today so you can immediately take more advantage of all that the cloud offers. So that's the value of FinOps, but can we boil FinOps down into some kind of secret sauce? The FinOps Foundation defines FinOps as a framework of people, principles, and phases of action. And it says at its core, FinOps is a cultural practice. That's the people in your organization and how they work together to leverage the cloud for organizational success. In fact, the first 5 principles of FinOps are all about your people and how they work together. But all of these personas are different, with separate needs, goals, and pain points. Business management wants to track and show the impact of your cloud investment on revenue. Finance wants accountability and a guarantee that the cloud is being used ever more prudently. And DevOps wants to operate efficiently and deliver the highest service of quality. So what's the one thing we can give to all of these people to empower them? What's the electricity to power your FinOps engine? It's insight. Help the right people know the right things at the right time. And not coincidentally, that's what we're completely focused on at Anodot. But insights could take a lot of forms. What makes a truly good insight? A powerful insight is timely, You get it just in time or when it's actually actionable. Accurate, the fastest way to lose all credibility in FinOps, I'm sure you know, is to serve up inaccurate information. Precision is critical. Meaningful. Insights can't be trivial. Is it a meaningful anomaly or is it just noise? Automated. Yes, it's great to review dashboards and reports and occasionally kick off a project tentpole to deep dives in an organization, but in general, insights need to come to the right people autonomously. Accessible. Insights need to be easy to understand and manage. Accessible insights means your team can generalize and focus on other responsibilities rather than becoming FinOps gurus for one service or cloud or having to contract occasionally with other organizations that can deliver these services for you. You also don't need a whole dedicated team of data scientists to build and tune machine learning algorithms and models that are required to operate effectively in the operate phase. And what's the result of insights that have these qualities? You'll find that they're actually a shortcut to run level competency across each of the three FinOps phases. So at Anodot, we enable businesses like yours to manage cloud costs by delivering FinOps and business insights to enable more valuable and efficient cloud spend. What do these insights look like in action? Melissa is going to step us through a range of FinOps insights as raised by the Anodot platform. It's important to consider that there are ways many organizations build at least an initial FinOps operation using cloud native capabilities, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And as much as we'd love for you to become our next FinOps partner organization, there are manual ways to deliver some of these insights through the efforts of your FinOps teams. We'll argue that it's much more cost efficient, effective, and consistent to use Anodot as a foundation and authority for FinOps, but you'll still get value from this discussion if you're just looking to use the native capabilities. And they give you also a great sense of what we can add to your organization from the Anodot side. So Melissa, take it away.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you all. So I will move over, I'll share my screen. Like Jeff said, we're going to give a few insights through the tool, even though I will try to highlight what can be done in the native tools. I usually love interruptions and love it being interactive. I know we have too many people to have everyone speak at once. So if anyone would like us to have a follow-up and just have a more personalized one-on-one, we can do that. But in the meantime, write down your comments or questions, and let's make it as interactive as possible. So I have everything ready here because we have a limited amount of time. I wanted to go fast and make sure that we have time at the end for you to ask questions or for us to go back to whatever you want. For FinOps, so we have in the field of FinOps today, I think there are two types of FinOps. You have FinOps engineers that are working as consultants and working with many customers on the MSP level or as general consultants. And then you have a dedicated FinOps inside a company that will often have tons of customers because there are many BUs. Companies who usually hire dedicated FinOps are very large. So at the end of the day, it's the same type of work. One of them is consulting external customers and one of them is consulting their internal customers. The larger you get, the bigger, the more challenging it gets to control your costs, especially if you're working multi-cloud. My background was only in AWS and now I'm paying the price because learning about all three clouds is tough. So just a general overview here of our dashboard. Some of the things that our customers look at is the forecast. I love this bottom part. And this I used to build manually either through a cost tool or native tools, trying to figure out how your costs are distributed among regions. Because these small dollars, even if it's $6, we would often find, okay, $6 US West, what is the account? Suddenly it is a pre-sales account of a demo that was done 2 years ago, which should have been shut down, and it's not $6. Everything in that account is $500. So small money, take a look at it once in a while, and this map gives you a very quick way to do that. Multi-cloud view, if you can build it. I know many of you are doing this manually, pulling from different sources to try to build this, because it is important. In most cases, one cloud will have the largest spend. I don't think I've ever seen a customer that has it equally distributed among all clouds. but you're still responsible for taking a look and understanding everything, which is difficult. So in this view, this is the default view. Here I have a split of all of my services. One of the challenges here is I would have to know what everything means. So I would have to know that EC2 is AWS, and then Compute Engine is GCP, and then VMs is Azure. But it could give you a bit of an idea. You could build some nice views here, a bit of an idea of your total costs. So if you don't have a tool, everything can be extracted. I've worked with customers using Power BI, QuickSight. I do recommend to extract it into a third party in order to take a look at everything. From here, trying to understand where the distribution is, where are our largest costs. So again, whether you're using Power BI or third-party tools, save it into dashboards, make sure, and that I've come across with a lot. People are rebuilding the same view with the same filters over and over. Usually most cloud cost tools or even native tools, I know the Cost Explorer allows you to do that today, let you save dashboards. Save it once and don't do it every month. Again, if you can. Here's just a distribution of my top 5 costs. If you're like myself, expert in AWS and less in the others, I think the first step is trying to understand what everything means. And not just in theory, but the actual numbers. How are VMs priced, or a Data Explorer? What are the charges? How is it split? So I will show you the view of what we use in the tool of how to understand that. Oh, okay, I'll jump to that later. I didn't put it in that order. This is one of my favorite parts, recommendations, because this is a huge challenge. I think all of you feel. In the different clouds, if you would like to extract recommendations, you usually have to go account by account or subscription by subscription, project by project. There is no centralized view. I know customers, large enterprises that are pulling all of the data using APIs into some tool they've built, usually using Power BI, and building this view. If you can do it, you should. If you have someone in-house who can help you pull that information, put it in one place, huge time saver. The next step is looking at the recommendations, understanding what everything is. I'm sure there are things that even we are missing, but we have a huge range of recommendations here. There are 2 types of recommendations. The quick wins, which are easy to spot, should be no-brainers. There is no reason why an instance should be stopped for over 900 days. Someone forgot about this server. They forgot about it. They left it running. We're paying for the EBS. Of course, here you see the demo environment. This usually doesn't cost $50,000, but it can cost, I've seen cases, $15,000 for the expensive ones, $10,000. These are one of the quick wins. Quick wins you should take care of, and that is usually anything that's idle, outdated. The savings plans reservations are also quick wins because you usually don't have to ask for permission. One of the challenging things then is remembering what people said. You went to a team or to a customer, you told them, we have a stopped instance, let's get rid of it. And then they said, no, I can't. There's a good reason why it's here. We're going to use it again in the next month. I need to keep it. And then you have to try to remember what they said next month when you speak to them again. You either have it in Excel or in emails, or you forget and then you just repeat yourself and then they get angry. So that happens as well. So one of the great things here is that you can exclude. I don't think this can be done. I think it can be done in the Trusted Advisor, but I do recommend taking the time to go through the recommendations and find a way to mark yourself which recommendations cannot be, what you can't do anything about, because you don't want to come back the next month and with the same list. In our case, you can hit on exclude. You can put the reason why you're excluding it, launching this in 1 month, exclude it for 3 months. I'll give them a bit of a window. If they don't do it next month, I'll give them 2 extra months to do it. And if they don't do it, it will be pushed back in. So this is something that you can do through the tool. If you don't have a tool, I would recommend that you figure a way to do it, because people will take you more seriously if you don't come back with the same recommendation over and over. So this is a highlight of our recommendations. One thing I worked with a customer last week, we built dashboards where we grouped recommendations by groups of by business units. So we can do it through what's called enrichment tags, new feature that we just launched where you can upload a CSV with a different logic. So I could build it by PO, by business unit, by teams. So we built a dashboard where they have the recommendations split by the different business units, because they know that for a specific business unit, idle RDS is expected because they have many backup databases. But for a different business unit, it's relevant. So if you can do that as well, if you've pulled out the recommendations to Power BI or you're using a tool, try to group them so that you don't have to filter each time, and so that you can customize it to the architecture. The next thing, which is a challenge, is tracking how much have you actually saved. You worked with a team, you saved money, you saved a lot of money, but in the same month, you also went up double what you saved. There were new workloads, new teams were added, it's Christmas or Cyber Monday, there's some reason, and you don't know how to prove to the company that you've actually made an impact, that costs have been saved. Many people do it through Excel. I would recommend that you try to find a way to track savings if you can. We have an automatic way to track it. So we track anything that was recommended, which has actually been done, and the annual savings, and trying to measure this. But as a FinOps, huge time consumer, but it's good. If you can come at the end of the month and tell your manager or show management, our teams saved X amount of money, then you will have to do less work probably in other areas if you can prove that things are getting done. So that is in terms of savings. If we want to be proactive, again, I'm not sure if you can do that through the trusted advisor sending out, and I'm less familiar with the Azure and GCP optimization tools, but most third-party tools will give you the option to send out reports proactively. So depending again on the architecture, I wouldn't want to send out the RDS idle to the team where I know they can't do anything about it, but ABS and attached or anything else that's idle, I can go ahead and add it and send it out to the relevant teams, filtered by the relevant linked accounts. So we want the teams to take responsibility, if possible. Try to get them involved. That is very, very difficult. Very difficult to get people involved on the other side. They have their day-to-day work. They don't want to stop their day-to-day to take a look at this. This is an extra. Nice to have. They probably won't look at it unless you have very good filtering, unless what they receive is good. So that's why it's important to exclude whatever is not relevant, and try to make it as customized as possible. So they actually take a look and pay attention. This we reviewed already. A few preferences here. I know other third-party tools. There is one third-party tool who has this, Cost Explorer. I'm not sure you can change the parameters, but this is a culture that you should build in your company. What is considered an outdated snapshot? How long is it acceptable to store snapshots for? So those are processes and culture changes that as a FinOps engineer, you have to go in and try to implement within the company. Try to set a rule, a set of rules. Even if they don't stick to them or they're not always relevant, at least that there's some guidance that for yourself and for the teams, you know what to check. You know that if you're looking at snapshots, anything older than 90 days goes in the list. Or if it is RDS idle, anything that is not tagged backup should be checked. But then that means you need to create a culture inside the company that adds tagging for backup databases. So create the culture and give yourself a set of conditions when you're supposed to check what. Now we go into the visibility. What am I paying for? Why am I paying for what I'm paying for? And exactly where is the money going? So it is very important to understand every service, even if it's tiny. So even the tiny ones, you probably won't do this when you start your position, but 6 months along the way, you have a free day, no meetings, sit down, take a look at these tiny things at the AWS backups, $18. It doesn't matter. How are AWS backups priced? Do I pay per hour? Do I pay per month? Do I pay per backup, per gigabyte? So that's important to get that granularity. In our tool, you can click in until you get that item description and per resource. So in this case, I was taking a look at RDS backups to try to understand what am I paying for. I understand that I paid for 0.095 of additional backup storage. And so I've given enough information. I still haven't explained why I'm paying for what I'm paying for. This is the point you would usually go to Google. If you have the time, go to Google. It helps to understand that how much you get for free, how much you pay in addition. There is often a good amount of money hidden in there if you understand what you're paying for. NAT Gateway is a popular one, where many times, now it's more well known, but a few years ago, many people didn't know that it's split into two. You pay per hour, whether you use it or not, and you pay per data transferred. So if you have an NAT gateway that is not processing any data, it's money going to the trash. And that is something that you can take a look at in the cost tool itself. You don't need, sorry, not in the cost tool, in the native tools, you don't need necessarily a third-party tool. Take a look at the invoice and try to figure out through the item description what exactly you're paying for. Anything where you're paying for per hour is a red flag. You want to make sure it's being used because money could be going to the trash. Here we have the option of building two-dimensional views. This I use a lot. This I don't think can be done in native cost tools. You would have to download it to CSVs, but it saves time in filtering. And then we would save it into different dashboards. Now it's really great. And you can do it if you download the data, download it once in a while, but we have the ability of building a multi-dimensional view. And this also saves time. So for example, I wanted to know a split of my services per region. Now I know that Ireland has most of the money, but I want to know what's inside, which linked accounts, what services, what usage types. I would have to spend a few hours filtering. So what I can do here is just build out the data, build out the table of all of my costs, what I want to see. And here I have a very detailed view of everything that I need. Down to, I could add resource, which is the most granular. So I would know not just that I'm paying for on-demand M5 extra large, which is my most expensive cost here, but exactly which servers they are based on the ID. So if you can build this view, of course, it's not something you will look at every day, but if you have a peak or you don't understand something, it will be very practical. Okay, I think we're okay with time. This is something which we added about a month ago. And as speaking with customers, it gave good ideas of things that you could do yourself as well. How do you track the process of an optimization process in terms of architecture? So I took S3 because it's an easy example. Let's say a company, and we had this example with a company about 2 weeks ago. They're in standard storage. They have decided that they need to move. They're going to go into a large project where one of their workloads is going to move over to Glacier. Now you want to track that. You want to make sure that we're seeing a decrease. So what we've done here is the ability to build KPIs or goals. So here I built my KPI for S3. I chose the usage type storage because I'm not including requests. So again, important that you filter the right things when you're tracking this. And I've set a goal for myself for $40 per day. So here, the coloring doesn't work perfectly with the example I chose because the red line is a bit hard to see, but I have my red line here. I can see that I was doing pretty good. Well, here I have a few peaks. Now I need to try to get back down. And that is something that you can build, whether you do it manually or you do it through a tool. Try to set a goal for when things are supposed to happen so that you can track it, because asking people over and over, have you done it, is pretty annoying. So this could help. It may not be the solution. You may see that nothing is being done and you still have to call them or send out an email. But at least if you have a few graphs, then you can independently check what is the status, where are we at. So in our tool, you can build that granularity down to the resource level. So we could track a specific database where it is.
Melissa, if I can just interrupt, there's one question here. I'm having, you might understand it more than me. It says, how do you connect cloud intelligence into Azure?
By cloud intelligence, you mean optimization?
I assume either it's, how we're connecting, how we're pulling data from Azure, or, I think, or just maybe focusing on the visibility aspect. Just curious if you could just answer that.
Yeah, sure. So everything that we're seeing here, and okay, I will move over to Azure. Everything that we're seeing here, we do have in Azure. Recommendations are not as extensive because Azure does not provide as many metrics as we have with AWS. So I think we have about 20 recommendations. So just to show you here is the list where we can see all of the recommendations. So again, we also have right sizing. We have to take a look at idle resources and try to figure out why they're idle. Stopped VMs, unattached disks, new generation disks that may be cheaper. So we have that aspect of it. There's also the visibility aspect, which will be similar to the whole idea of AWS. I am not very familiar with the Azure services, but it doesn't matter. If I'm able to build this, if I'm able to go in, then I can understand that my third expense is storage. I'm going to go into storage. I understand that from the storage, my most expensive is premium SSD. I go into premium SSD to understand how it's split, and I understand that I'm paying for the different types of disks within premium SSD. Now, actually, I've been told that I think in Azure cost tools, you can do part of this. You can also download the data and try to figure out through the Excel. I'm going to choose the P30 disks to try to understand what's going on inside, what am I paying for, and we get down to that granular per resource view. So
Melissa, this person just clarified, they're asking how we capture the data from Azure.
Billing export. We're using the billing export in order to capture the data. Okay, so we should have started there. Sorry. I went into the details, but that was the idea.
No, I think it was good anyways, though. I liked what you were able to show. So that's great.
So what I'm showing in AWS, we can basically do the same thing with Azure. Of course, different terminology. Some are similar, some are different. Rate is actually an idea that we got from a few large customers. They were doing this manually. What they were doing is they were trying to calculate the success of their optimization efforts. So for example, they had EC2 or VMs on demand. They spoke to their teams. They decided to move everything to reservation or spot or a big portion. But in the same month, they added 200 servers. So if we take a look at the total, it is very difficult to measure the success. If those 200 servers are being launched in reserved instance or spot mode, then we should see a decrease. But because there's greater volume, there's an increase. So we added the rate feature, which is something they were calculating each month manually. And they gave us the idea. They were grabbing the total costs, dividing it by the total number of hours to grab the rate. And through the average rate, we can see the progress. So here I can see that even if my daily costs are either the same or going up, in reality, I'm actually going slightly down. So if you're not using this today, it is something that's pretty easy to calculate. I would recommend thinking or considering rate as a way to measure cost optimization. Mapping. This is often done manually, but it's important. And if you don't do it today, I would open conversations. I would go and speak to your finance department because they may be spending hours trying to figure out how to split costs by departments or by different COGS reports. So, and if they haven't even started yet because they're just moving into the cloud, have that conversation anyway. So that a year from today or 2 years from today, when the costs are large, you don't have to start building all of these groups. You can play around with it. Anything you start while it's small will be easier than whenever it's large. So here what we can do is create groups. So I could say that I know that my production business unit or environment is composed of the linked account in production. That will be the first condition in, but I would also like the system to grab anything that is under the environment under the tag environment production. And I know that, let's take the example where I have one account. I know that most of my CloudWatch costs, most of my costs for CloudWatch are because of my production environment. CloudWatch cannot be tagged. So I want to add that as well. And this way I built a very good grouping, which splits my different costs. So if you're not doing this today, I would recommend considering, because almost every large company that we've been working with, or that I've worked with in the past, there comes a day when they suddenly need this, and then they have to figure out how to build it when the spend is a few millions. And that is difficult. So building it while you're still small is much easier. And if you're already large, take next week and build it before you get even larger. So what do we have here? Kubernetes, which is one thing that we advertise in this webinar. There may be a few people here who are already bored. They just came in for this part. So I'll jump into it. And what are we doing with Kubernetes? Until recently, we were extracting data through a CloudWatch agent. So it is not something that we can read by default through a read-only role. We need you to install a CloudWatch agent on your clusters. We are now moving to Prometheus because of the cost and because of the performance, which may be better. Our most heavy users are AWS Kubernetes and GCP Kubernetes. So we have fewer users with Azure. And what are we reading? How does the logic work? Because this is one of the challenges in the world of cloud costs. You did the smart move. You moved your environment over to a shared resources, to a containerized environment. You hypothetically cut costs because you need fewer servers, and now you have no idea what you're paying for. You have to build that. You have to build that view. And actually, I had a customer, I think about 5 years ago, who their business was having conferences. They led conferences, and it was very easy for them to calculate to give pricing, cost per conference, based on the number of people, number of tables, number of lecture rooms, food. And then COVID came and they had to move everything over to webinar. And they decided to use a containerized environment as well. So they had the challenge where first of all, they didn't know how much to charge because it is now online. There are no tables or food or physical people who have to work the booths. And the servers are shared. So they didn't know how much each conference was taking up in order to give accurate pricing. So that is one of the goals of our tool here, trying to help you break up those costs, helping this customer figure out how much a specific conference costs them. So the way it works is, by default, we show you the split per cluster. We go into one more level, and that is when you click on a cluster, it goes into the next level, which will split the costs per node. So we have many, many nodes here. I will continue clicking in. The next view will be inside a specific node. And this is the first level of underutilization that we show, the waste per node. So I'm showing the amount of space that the pods took up and the amount of space that is free. This is your first opportunity for optimization here, is maybe downsize your servers. We have here a server that most of the time, over 50% is going to waste. The next view that I have when I go click on a specific pod will be the per pod data. This is what the agent is reading, and this is what our logic is based on. So the per pod is showing me the required usage. Oh, sorry, this was a bad example in our demo. Everything is 0. I clicked on the wrong one. But let's say the required usage was 1 or 2, the actual usage, and then we are calculating how much is going to waste. So what is the difference between the required and the actual usage? That is what we are considering waste. In order to assign a cost to the pod, we calculate how much space the pod takes up in the node. So if the node costs $1 and this pod has taken up 50% of the space in CPU and memory, 50 cents will go to this pod, which means that 50 cents will be accumulated towards the namespace of that pod. And if there are questions later, or even now, we can go into it further. So that is the drill down view. What can we do with it? here I am splitting the cost by namespace. So based on the logic that I showed you before, we are adding up the costs, showing you the total per namespace and what's going to waste. So wherever those pods did not take up space in the node is money that is going to the trash. So we are also showing that for financial purposes, you do have the option to allocate the waste. And then in terms of utilization, you can build the same view and ask to see split by namespace by CPU. So here we have a sum per day of all of the actual versus requested cores in order for me to see where I am at. And then you can play around with filtering to a specific namespace and seeing it by deployment, by label, by node group, by node, to try to figure out where the waste is. What is coming in the next 2 months are recommendations. So you won't have to dig for it. We will tell you these are your top 20 pods that are 80% underutilized, top 20 nodes that have been running on 50% or higher waste for the past 30 days. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Maybe I'll stop.
Yeah, no, I think we're a little bit short on time, Melissa, and I have a few more things to go through.
I'm sorry. I'm going to stop.
Oh, no, it was excellent. I think it was a lot of great stuff you covered, and we'll have to schedule a follow-up session to give you more time to go through everything because it was really phenomenal. Oh, it was great. I'm just going to finish here with a little bit of the presentation, then we'll have the Q&A. And if we don't get to all the questions, please enter them anyways, and we'll follow up with you after the event. We'll also be sending out the recording as well. So I'm sure there's probably some things that you want to look at twice where Melissa went through them because it was so informative. So assuming my screen is, are you seeing my slides now, Melissa?
Yeah, we saw that. We saw the FinOps.
Hang on, sorry about that. All right, thank you. So if it's as easy as delivering these insights, why haven't all businesses reached FinOps nirvana? I actually mentioned 2 places where FinOps initiatives can stall frequently before. For finance, we find that it happens a lot during the initial inform phase. And for DevOps, it happens during optimization, usually. Both of these are primarily due to a lack of empathy between the 2 departments. And in fact, the somewhat insensitively worded getting engineers to take action concern has been the #1 reported FinOps challenge from the past 2 annual FinOps Foundation industry surveys. Better insights can fix this. I recently talked to a medium-sized IT security company that's using Anodot, and they have over 120 active users across finance, executives, engineering, DevOps. And we find this kind of usage broadly across departments, across our entire customer base. We also see an extremely high ongoing rate of implementation of our cost-saving recommendations. Anodot brings finance and DevOps together. When I talk to prospects, I also hear about one other main challenge. With many FinOps tools, their businesses see initial value, but find that after a time, value and usage drops off, or they have to engage an expert to reinvigorate the FinOps process. At Anodot, we call this the wall. This challenge can also be vaulted by providing better insights. So another customer has been using us for some time, but they actually just actioned over $1 million in savings optimizations last quarter. We see this kind of ongoing value on again and again with our customers. And so why do we believe that our insights are used so widely and that our customers aren't actually hitting this wall that we see with some other solutions out there? It's because we've focused on making our insights not just powerful, but also highly relevant. Relevant to what? To people, these personas, the FinOps personas. When insights are people focused, they enable collaboration by providing the right information to the right audience. They also create a shared language that can be used across teams and departments. Customers like Aqua Security report that Anodot creates a single language so FinOps and technical people can communicate. And finally, when your insights are relevant to each persona, you can develop and achieve performance metrics to show progress and real value growth due to your usage of the cloud. One thing we focused on at Anodot is automatically tracking, which Melissa showed you, among other things, the dollars saved due to implementing our optimization recommendations, whether you're manually checking off each one of those or not. So what are some practical, tactical things you can do to start delivering persona-driven insights today? Well, Melissa mentioned a number of things, how you could export data from the different cloud service providers and kind of build your own services. I'm going to run through a couple quick examples here with AWS specifically, but there's also offerings, which I'll mention in a minute, from each cloud service provider. So first, start with the powerful features that each cloud service provider already gives you. All of our customers start from the AWS perspective with AWS's powerful native offerings. We find almost universally in prospect conversations that business could actually be doing more with those native capabilities in the first place. So here's some high-level tips, First, learn and leverage AWS Cost Explorer. Great new features that have actually been recently launched, and it continues to get even more powerful. Take advantage of the AWS well-architected cloud intelligence dashboards, especially the Kudos dashboard. Configure AWS budgets and set up budget actions. The AWS Optics teams and others put out great resources for leveraging AWS tools, and you'll find more in the well-architected information. And then here on the right, a reminder to focus on enabling shared understanding between FinOps and DevOps. You'll find that engineers can pick up the concepts and language of finance very easily, and folks that aren't technical need to give themselves more credit for what concepts they're actually capable of understanding. If you can thrive in corporate finance, you can certainly start to wrap your head around concepts like discussing with engineering if certain workloads would work well on ARM Graviton instances, or getting them to make use of compute optimizer. So don't sell yourself short if you're not a technical person. There's a lot of this that you can grok. I've seen many people come from the non-technical side over the technical side, and vice versa, from the technical side over to the finance side. So when you're ready to level up, we want you to talk to us here at Anodot. What sets Anodot apart from other tools is that we offer great visibility even to pod level Kubernetes. We focus on enabling you to get the right business sites for any business metric to the right people at the right time, no matter what their role. One difference between Anodot and the native tools is that we give you a true multi-cloud view, whereas each provider's tool will only show you their own cloud services. We surface a huge range of personalized recommendations your team will trust and get behind. Our customers achieve meaningful ongoing savings with Anodot, and the platform pays for itself very quickly. We have machine learning driven monitoring. This is highly differentiated from anything else out there on the market. Extremely relevant anomaly detection that separates urgency from noise, and the highest accuracy cost forecasting with an astounding 98.5% median accuracy. We're also constantly and consistently bringing new features to market focused on your people and their needs. And we're a FinOps certified platform. And finally, we're priced affordably. The last thing you need is a tax on top of your already hefty cloud budget. Anodot is designed to pay for itself. So as I conclude the slides portion, I want you to remember one thing as you go back to your teams and pursue better cloud financial management. You'll find the most FinOps success if each action you take is done in the service of driving collaboration, empathy, and insight for each stakeholder in your organization. So, all right, we're going to move into the Q&A with the couple minutes we have left. Please submit any questions through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And while we're giving you a few seconds to submit any questions, I just wanted to highlight a great guide we've just released that walks through the native FinOps capabilities of each of the big three cloud service providers, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. You can follow this URL here or use the QR code to get to that asset. I also mentioned that all businesses start their FinOps journeys with those native tools, but the offerings from each cloud are pretty complex. The guide walks you through each and gives you some ideas about how to put the different tools from each provider together to form the basis of a FinOps strategy. And of course, as you get more advanced, we highly recommend you reach out to Anodot for a demo or a proof of concept to see how we can help you operationalize FinOps at the enterprise level. And we run these monthly cloud cost management and FinOps sessions. So keep an eye out for our next training that's coming soon. And let me see if we have any questions here. Looks like we have one question. Are there any particular FinOps insights that are most important to cloud cost management? Is that something you can answer, Melissa? So
Sure.
any FinOps insights that you find are most important?
Yeah, I reviewed a bit in the webinar itself, but really trying to understand what each line item is, even if it's $10, so that you're ready for when it grows, understanding the split and how the pricing model works, and not ignoring the small costs. they are often connected to larger costs.
Great. Another one here, MSPs. I think this is because you mentioned MSPs during the presentation. So yes, we have a very robust ecosystem of partner managed service providers who deliver FinOps services with Anodot. If you have lower spend across the clouds, generally we'll recommend you over to an MSP partner that can provide more bespoke services than we can. So we can connect you with someone in your region. And we also offer very robust capabilities for MSPs. Melissa, I don't know if you could touch on just a couple of those things for MSPs that we
Sure. So if
offer.
there are any MSPs on the call, we offer, I think, what is most crucial for an MSP, which is supporting invoicing, the ability to rerun all of the calculations that will allow you to invoice your customers. And also, like you saw the recommendations, adding value to your customers. And for those of you who are not an MSP, we have great MSPs with tons of FinOps knowledge who will often add that to the package. So you could get the tool plus an expert.
Awesome. All right. We're just going to cut it a little bit short. If you've asked a question that we haven't gotten answered, we'll follow up with you after the fact. Thank you for all the questions. If you'd like to catch up on past sessions, you can check out our YouTube channel, and we'll also be sending out the recording of the session within the next 48 hours. Thanks to all of you for attending. Thank you so much. Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for all of your insight. It was a really great presentation. We hope to see you all soon and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.